This leads me to introducing our next speaker, CTA President Dorval Carter. As a former CTA employee myself, there's a special place in my heart for CTA also. I'm honored to share the stage with Dorval as we work closely together to advance our transportation systems. CDOT and CTA have partnered on projects that have had some of the biggest positive impacts on Chicago's landscape. Projects that I just highlighted, such as the Loop Link, the Morgan Street Green Line Station, or the Washington Wabash Station. CDOT and CTA work together to get things built, to keep Chicago moving forward, and to connect our residents and visitors to neighborhoods across the city. So please help me in welcoming CTA President Dorval Carter.
Good afternoon, everybody. Okay, you guys. In the transit world, when someone says good afternoon, you get a robust response. Let me try that again. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. There you go. Now you all sound like transit people. As president of CTA, I want to welcome all of you here to Chicago, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. You know, very few cities are known by their transit systems the way Chicago is. If you think of Paris and Metro, you think of London and the Tube, you think of Chicago and the L. We have a unique position in the history of the city and of the progress that we have made. And certainly Rebecca, in her comments this afternoon, has laid out a tremendous amount of that energy and the excitement that exists around transportation and transportation infrastructure investments. So it's within that spirit that I would obviously encourage you to make sure you use and take advantage of our extensive train and bus system, where you can learn firsthand how transit coexists with vehicular and bike traffic in the city. Recently, it was our honor to become a member of this highly respected organization. Many of you may not be familiar with me, but I spent a lot of time in Washington, D.C. working in the federal government. I worked for both the Department of Transportation and for the Federal Transit Administration. And I can tell you from my own personal experience how important it is to contemplate transportation holistically from both a federal level as well as a local level. We are appreciative of the NACTO's recognition of the importance of including public transit as a part of our effective transportation planning. CTA's participation in NACTO will allow us to have a seat at the table as best practices and recommendations for how roads are designed and developed. To give you a little bit of perspective, CTA is the nation's second largest transit agency. We provide about 1.6 million bus and rail rides each weekday. And to put that into context, that's the equivalent of moving the city of Philadelphia every day. Our annual ridership is nearly 500 million, and we provide more than 80% of all the transit rides in our region. This year, CTA is also turning 70. We were created by the state of Illinois to take control of multiple privately owned transit lines back in 1947. Also this year, our world-famous L, the elevated railroad, turned 125 years old. Last year, our trains carried more than 238 million passengers, which was the second highest rail ridership in the history of CTA. According to a recent customer satisfaction survey, 85% of CTA riders are satisfied or very satisfied with CTA. While we are certainly pleased to have such a high rating, we face many challenges to continuing to provide the best transportation service to our customers. Those include competitive pressures from new market entrants like ride-hailing services, as well as low gas prices, which entice some to drive more than take transit. Congestion on our streets is challenging to delivering efficient bus service, and the difficulty of finding funding for modernization and expansion is always present. That said, here in Chicago, we have found a number of ways to work with transportation peers to make complementary and mutually beneficial improvements. For us at CTA, those have included bus corridor improvements that increase the speed and reliability of bus service, such as the Jeffrey Jump, which is a BRT-like express bus service from downtown to the far south side that operates during the AM and evening rush periods. Other improvements have included the installation of traffic signal improvements on some of our busiest streets and optimizing bus stop spacing as part of an offering of express bus service on two of our busiest north and south corridors that also provide connections to multiple rail stations and lines. We are also working with several agencies on the reconstruction and reconfiguration of North Lakeshore Drive, which is a north-south arterial that links the north side of the city's to the city's Loop Central Business District. The close partnership between CTA and the Chicago Department of Transportation has allowed us to achieve many major projects like Loop Link, which was launched in 2015. Loop Link includes designated bus lanes, larger boarding platforms that are raised to provide easier boarding, early queue jumping signals for buses at key intersections that allow them to get ahead of traffic, and bus tracker screens, and more. As a companion project to Loop Link, CDOT also completed the Union Station Transit Center in 2016, which is a new off-street bus boarding center that provides better organization for our buses and keeps private vehicles and taxi traffics in appropriate corridors to reduce congestion in that area and to better serve the 120,000 people that connects people to Amtrak, Metra, and our region's commuter rail service, as well as, of course, CTA. The City of Chicago's commitment to transit goes back decades. As Rebecca was pointing out, with a history of building transit lines and then turning them over to CTA, one of the little-known facts is that the City of Chicago is the one that's responsible for a major portion of our transit infrastructure. That includes both the Orange Line to Midway, which was built in 1993, and the Red Line South Branch between downtown and the South Side in 1969, and the Blue Line branch to O'Hara, which was built in 1984. Additional projects that the city has been involved in include the opening of a new signature downtown station at Washington Wabash, which opened this summer and is a gateway to Millennium Park, which is one of the biggest visitor destinations in the city. We're also working with the city as we begin major bus and rail terminal rehabs on the north and south sides that are strengthening them as community focal points. In 2016, we partnered with the city, which created a special transit-only TIF to fund our largest project to date, the first phase of the Red Purple Modernization Program, or RPM for short. RPM will build more than 20 old, cramped, and inaccessible stations and about 10 miles of century-old track structure on the north side. To secure the federal funding for this project, the City Council authorized the TIF to provide roughly a third of the $2.1 billion cost of Phase 1. Because of the city and the mayor's deep commitment to transit, we are now able to modernize and increase capacity on what is a 24-hour-a-day, 7 days a week rail line and one of the busiest commuter lines in the country. We are taking every opportunity to improve bus service while also improving how buses perform on the streets. We have piloted prepaid bus boarding, allowing customers to prepay their fares and improving our boarding time significantly. We're also working on adding the city's popular Divvy bike share program into our Venture transit fare payment app to further integrate transit options for Chicagoans. We look forward to continuing the strong partnership we have with NACTO and transit agencies and professionals in Chicago and beyond. So, in conclusion, you should always feel free to reach out to us, and I would ask all of you to take advantage of some of the CTA tours that we set up for the conference participants. I think you will enjoy taking CTA around the city of Chicago. Thank you very much.